Hey, folks, we are going to get started in just a moment here. Troy had to restart. Actually, we both restarted, so I'm waiting on Troy to show up. And there he is, knocking on the door. Let me bring him in, and we can start our critique. All right, let's see if I can bring Troy Miller on stage. Troy, we are live streaming now, by the way, so make sure you're all together before I bring you on stage. So here is Troy Miller. I know that doesn't look like him, but I'm going to make it look like him in just a second here. Give me one moment. Troy, you can't hear me yet because you're not on stage yet. Give me 1 second. You are now on stage. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mr. Troy Miller.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I restarted. What's that? The joys of what? Technology?
Rebooting. It just, all the things shut down and restart. And
oh my God, I know. I did the same thing. Yeah, but sometimes you got to do it. But the reason, folks that are watching, the reason that we did that last minute reboot was there's every now and then with this software that we're using to live stream, it's called Ecamm Live. It's great. It is revolutionary in a lot of ways. It's changed my workflow and hardware and software setup. But every now and then there's some weird delay that introduces itself when you start a stream. And there's like a full second of delay between when I say something and when Troy responds to it and vice versa. So we had to fix that. And I think it's fixed, hopefully. So you ready to do this?
I am. I'm still in the middle of logging in and all the things.
All the things. See, you got automation, man. Automation. It's all automated over here. Boot up, everything launches, lights turn on, all that good stuff. While you're doing that, use the other side of your brain and tell us what you've been up to. Well, we got Kashmir in here. We've got Paolo. Hey, Paolo. Welcome. Nora. Hello. Stampfli. La Duderina's in the house. Michael Rhino's in the house. Yeah, we got a lot of people. Waiting to see this.
Right. Love it. So it wasn't.
Are you? Let me put it on you to make you even more nervous as you try to remember passwords to log into all your stuff.
Oh, I got it. It's working.
What was that password? What was it? Yeah. While he's doing that, there's just FYI, this the topic for this critique, which is number 208, I believe, was photo or image stitching, which is interesting, and we had a great turnout. Troy, I was expecting kind of an anemic turnout because photo stitching, it's not hard, but it is not like, okay, I need to go take a picture of something blue or something like that. It's more involved and takes more effort to do that, especially to do it as well as a lot of the submissions that we see in today's crop, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
exactly.
Yep. Are you ready? Okay. You ready to dive in? You want to do this?
I am. Yeah, I've got it. I got it brought up. I got everything there.
Your mic's working? Good. All right. Troy's over there sweating. And he didn't know I was going to bring him into a live stream, by the way. So, well, yeah, I had a catch-22. You got people waiting, and it's after the hour, and Troy's rebooting, so I could wait, or I could just start the stream, bring you on. So, command decision.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. So, like I said,
under band, so just in case. You know what?
All right. I know. Mine is on right over here. Always. Photo critique 208, image stitching. Let's dive into the critique, folks. So here we are inside of the community. And first up is Mr. Craig Stampfli. He says, funny enough, my submission is also a bridge. He's referring to my little shot of the Golden Gate Bridge here. Did I shoot this from a drone? I'm not sure if I think I did. I think that was a drone shot. He says, funny enough, my submission is also a bridge, a story bridge here in Brisbane, taken last Sunday afternoon. Look at that. I love this shot.
Yeah. The first thing that I think to myself is like, I could not do that anywhere around here. Anywhere in Southern California, like you would be arrested and locked up because you can't fly drones anywhere near stuff like this.
Yeah.
So I see this as a unique shot from my perspective because I can't get those kind of shots. And then, of course, I looked up Felon's Brewery, which is down there on the right, and now I want to go there and have lunch. So.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Harkening back to the fact that Australia was a prison colony or island or what or continent or whatever you want to call it way back in the day, right? So I'm guessing that's where Felon's Brewery come from. You know what, Troy? You say you can't get shots like this in the U.S. because of the restrictions around flying UAVs around bridges and stuff. I got some shots like this. I just claimed ignorance. You know what? Here's my quick story about that. So I was at that shot that I showed you at the beginning, the Golden Gate Bridge shot. I started on the, I guess the east side of the north span of the bridge. Was doing shots and all that. And before I left to go get that shot on the other side of the bridge, I was like, you know what? I was like, okay, I was doing like normal photos with a wide angle lens from the ground and all that. And then I said, you know what? I want to get some drone shots of this. I know I'm not supposed to, but there's like really no one around. And it's a Mavic Mini, the little tiny one, right? No one's going to mind. And if they do say something, I'll just claim ignorance or whatever. Right. So I took that thing up and I flew it. I'll share the shots in the community. I did some shots above the bridge looking down the pylons. I did a shot similar to Craig's shot, but not as good. I did a bunch of shots, and then I brought it back, landed, threw it in my camera bag because it's tiny, and I was walking my way back to my car with my other camera hanging around my neck, walking my way back to the car, and 3 security vehicles, I saw them pass me like they were going to, get somebody, and presumably it was me, right? But, the drone was already tightly packed away, and I didn't look like somebody that'd be flying a drone because I didn't have all that gear with me. So, yeah, could have ended badly. I got lucky. I wonder what they would have done, though. Like a ticket or take my drone, take my memory card. I wonder what they've done. I don't know. Who knows?
Recently, so.
Oh, did they? Oh, okay.
But so speaking to Craig's image.
Yeah. Speaking of Craig's image. Yeah, enough about me. Yeah. Speaking of Craig's image.
Well, I do want to point out the fact that I love the symmetry of this, and the HDR look, the brighter center, and then how it kind of fades out to the edge, the distortion, the fisheye look, I think is like really, really super cool. And that Craig took the effort to make sure that the buildings on the right, wasn't cut off, and all that detail is so important. Even the slight bit of chin that's on this image, the foreground that makes us feel like it's higher, right? It's lifted up, and then the horizon isn't dead center. So all the technicals and all the sort of like leading lines and stuff are really, really great. And I just really enjoy it. I will say, if it wasn't for the sort of specular highlight reflections that we're getting on the freeway, the road surface, and the water, this image would be dull, contrastily. But that really helps make the image, and it's really nice that that's there. So, good capture and great image.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with all that. And the other piece of it is the skyline back here is not, I mean, from what I can tell, is not distorted, right? I don't know if this is the artifact of the lens or the panoramas, the stitching or whatever, but it's not distorted, yet you have this highly distorted bridge in the foreground. Because when I first saw this, I was like, oh yeah, you need some perspective correction or whatever on this to straighten that bridge out. And then I was thinking, no, you don't, because look at that. It's almost like a smile in there. But look at the buildings. They're perfect, right? So I don't know. This is really good. It's a compelling shot.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you can, this is a stitched, right? So it wasn't really shot with a fisheye. It was stitched, and that's why the background is nice and flat, and the foreground has that bow, because as you stitch the images, to the left it's further away, the center is closer to you, the right is further away. So it kind of gives that sense of distortion without actually distorting it. So very clever, very neat technique, and stitching all that together is a lot of work. And
yeah,
Craig does
really.
that's really what we're getting at, right? Is like his image doesn't suck. So
It doesn't suck. It doesn't suck. Yeah.
good job.
As if, right? Yeah, his image is just, as if that's a surprise. All right. And coming up next is Nora Znotinas. Is this Nambia or Namib? Namib Desert. Am I pronouncing that right, Nora? I know you're in the chat. Let's take a look. Look at that. Lawrence of Arabia right there.
Yes. Yes. This is just so serene and so beautiful. My initial thought is I really wish that there was a little bit more color saturation, and that may be lost in the web version. So I really wish that there was just a little bit more punch, maybe like in the blue and the orange colors in the sand or something. But it's really wonderful. And when you're stitching an image like this together, one of the hardest things to do is to keep that sky, that tonal transition all the way across. And I can see a couple little spots at the top where they were probably blended together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Maybe
the way
here.
that you can, yeah, and the way that you can find those is if you bring them into like Photoshop, or you can even do this like in the raw converter, is apply a lot of like tonal contrast or something like that as a layer, and just really jack with the layers, or, the levels or the tone curve, and then those contrasts will start to pop out in the sky, and you can find dust spots, and you can find where they blend. But this image doesn't really suffer from that. I mean, this is just a gorgeous image.
Yeah, no, I love this. This is, yeah, definitely iconic. Yeah, like Michael Rhino says in the chat, he says this is on his bucket list of locations to visit one day. Yeah, and this is just, of course, right? And we've seen these shots before, but most of us don't have them, right? And I've seen this shot like this. I've seen it, or similar shots, not this one, but similar shots in black and white, high contrast, which looks stunning. I wonder, though, what infrared would do for a shot like this. Would it add or change anything? How would infrared light behave here?
So infrared would make this image a little bit more graphical, in that the sky is going to go dark. The sand where the sun is landing is going to go bright, so it's going to go lighter. And then the shadows are going to go even deeper. So you're going to get a very abstract, form and shape type of image, and you can obviously control like the contrast in the sky. Mm-hmm. So, but it would look super cool in infrared. So
yeah, really nice, Nora. Thank you.
And for those of you that love sand dunes, I mean, in Southern California, we have Glamis sand dunes. We have the side that people ride in, and then we have the northern side that you can go to. It is every bit this beautiful out there. Every bit is beautiful. Realize it's not a long distance travel, but if you want sand dunes, I mean, I know where to go.
What about Pismo? What about Pismo Beach? Can you get a shot like this in Pismo? Is it too small?
No. First of all, Pismo sand is like a gray, like a whitish gray, and it's tiny, tiny, tiny. So Glamis has the northern section of sand dunes that's a protected area that you can walk in, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So
love it. Cool. Yeah, link us up in the community for the folks that want to go. All right.
Yeah, it would be good.
All right. Next up is Paolo. He says, I've tried to find a way for providing with Stitch what cannot be provided with a single cropped image. Yeah, so I investigated the Brinzier method. Furthermore, I wanted to use it for candid spontaneous scene, as I like to do. He took this in the local Museum of Modern Art. The title is Painting 6, Sculpture 1. The 1 is me. For it occurred to me that in this exhibitions, usually pictures attract far more than sculptures. This is another technical challenge, so I'm going to provide the technical details. This is 3 24 megapixel shots with a Fuji X-T4 7 Artisan, I guess, 35 millimeter 0.94 speed lens at max aperture, 320 at 2/20th of a second, stitched and processed and framed in Lightroom Classic. Let's take a look. Look at that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I love the use of this technique in this situation. I mean, this isn't something that I would have thought of doing in this type of situation, so it really does lend itself to this, which I think is wonderful. Just two quick thoughts. One, you spent all the time to set this shot up and do all this. You probably would have wanted to include the base of the statue and not cut it so tight, or even cut a tiny bit off, right? Like you could really give that a little bit more space around the statue.
Yeah.
And not having the raw file on hand and not knowing, but the highlight that's falling onto the statue seems a little bit hot. And what I would do is I would bring the overall exposure down so that the highlight looked better and let the room go darker. Not too dark, right? But give it a little bit more sense of depth and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. That was same thing, same comments. I knew you were going to say that about the bottom of the frame. We always talk about that, right? How, or at least I say that. I use the whole analogy of the edges of the frame being magnetic. And if you have something too close, your eye is going to like fall kind of right here, and then it gets sucked to the edge. But in the case of the statue, yeah, you're right. This base, it would have been great to see a little bit more, less of a tight space here, a little bit more space. And I kind of want to know just a little bit of how thick this thing is that it's on. Is it a pillar? Is it a table or whatever? So showing a little bit of its front edge might have helped with that. Other than that, yeah, I agree. Yeah, this part right here is, I agree, it is bright, but for me it's not that egregious. It's almost in the same tonal range as down in the edges here. But if you did bring it down, you're right, it would bring us right into this sculpture more and make it less likely that we're going to wonder what these people are doing on the outside, while still giving us a hint that this is an actively visited museum.
Right, and that's really sort of one of my favorite things to do when you have images in a space that has a lot of lighting and contrast, or directional lighting, or lighting that's focused on a thing, is that, a lot of times, you want to bring detail into all the spaces, and in reality, it's okay to let the space that your subject is sitting in go even darker, right? Create more mystery, create a little bit of drama. And I would say, that if I was an artist that made the sculpture, I would prefer that you only look at my sculpture while you're there and not see the rest of the room, right?
Yeah.
And so by bringing the exposure down and doing something of that nature, you're really drawing attention to the sculpture. So beautiful technique and great image.
And in the end, right, it depends on what the final usage for this print, or who commissioned this image. Like, for example, if this was a shot that the museum said they wanted to kind of show the installation, and that this is an active visited museum, so please come here and bring your dollars, then you want to see more of the surrounding area, versus, it's all about the sculpture, and maybe the artist who created this, not the artist who created the sculpture, or the owner of the sculpture. The owner of the sculpture is like, I want a shot of my sculpture in situ in this museum. Please do a shot of it. Then, of course, in the background can go dark. So it depends, right? It depends.
Yeah, we're artists, and what we want is how they should accept it, right? What we create, they should just be happy to take it.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Thank you, Paolo Bosetti, for that. That's awesome. Next up is Marc Charette. Marc says, almost everything I do is stitched by design. He's a 360 photographer, for those that don't know. There's usually 360 from 4 shots around in a business. This one was tricky as a flat stitch. Some of what looks like halo was actually fog, trying to figure out which is which. Well, it was a beautiful morning on Dog Trap Road, just a few miles from home, taken from 8x2. What's that 8x2? I don't know. It's 70 millimeter. 8x2 must be some fancy 360 photographer, 10 grand body type thing.
I don't know. He's making stuff up. That's
yeah. This is from the Confabulator camera right here.
Yeah, let's see if Frederick can pronounce this and knows what it is.
I know they're doing to me. I know. My brain is only half caffeinated right now, so my chat GPT hasn't kicked in to teach me how to do stuff.
Paolo answered 8 columns and 2 rows.
Oh, you and your smart brain, Paolo, figuring things out that we can't. Yes, that's what I meant to say, Paolo. I was testing you guys. So
X stands for times. Thanks.
Yeah,
It's been a long time since I've done math, so
I know. Yeah, let's just put Paulo on the screen just to give him credit right there. Hang on. There we go. Yes,
yeah.
I sit corrected. I sit corrected. What do you think? What do you think of the shot?
I really dig it. At first, and I say this knowing, Mark, that he doesn't tend to overprocess. So initially, I look at these colors and I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're pushed really, really far.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to look at the foreground and the reflections and the highlights and the shadows in the foreground, and I'm not seeing over color saturation. So what that says to me is like, this was an amazing real world sunset that I just think is just fantastic that he captured. Um, One of my favorite elements to this image is the gate in the lower right hand corner, and I wish we had a little bit more of the gate, just a little bit more, because I think it's a secondary hook, right? It's like an exit to the frame. Like I want to walk out that gate or in that gate to go in that field and see that space. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that idea. It's really wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I love the colors in this. And yeah, I agree. Pushed a little bit hard, so it's giving us kind of that, excuse me, almost like a HDR feel in the sky there. So, but I tend to like that. I tend to like the oversaturated, hyper realistic look in images that are kind of an artist's interpretation of the scene. This may have very well looked like this there. Who knows? But in coming across in photography, it feels a little bit like it's pushed a little bit on the saturation side. What from a compositional perspective, no pun intended, I look at this and I think, where is my subject in this? Where, like, what is the subject? I feel like if there's a barn or a house or a tricycle in the yard or something to give me it. I know you said the gate there, but the gate is a little bit cut off, which tells me from a viewer of the image that the gate is not important because it's not included all the way in there. So then I start looking around the image and I'm like, okay, I like the composition, but it looks like I need something else in there as a background or as a hero or subject element. I'm curious to see what other folks say in the community about that, because the argument can be made that the whole thing is the subject. Absorb the shot on its own merit as boom. This is beautiful. This is somebody woke up and they're standing on their porch and they gazed out over the landscape and this is what they were seeing and feeling. But on the other side, it's subject. Where's that subject? Where's my anchor? My brain is looking around in there for something more interesting than the beautiful sunset. I don't know. Does that make sense or
Right.
am I way off?
No, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, I totally agree. I think that if I was standing in this spot and I was photographing it, my struggle would be the post to the left that's out of focus that I feel is distracting, the
Mm-hmm.
tiny post in the middle right that I think is kind of distracting. It feels like it's interfering with my ability to see the landscape as the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my thought is like, what is my subject going to be? And for me, I think my subject would be the gate. I
Mm-hmm.
really like that gate. I don't know why. I really love, the fact that there's this in and out point, there's this barrier, there's this thing, to this beautiful space that I want to enter. So it kind of reminds me of the song, Signs, and
Mm-hmm.
the idea that somebody's keeping me out of this pasture. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so many stories here, and what a wonderful image, and great job stitching. Right, that was really sort of the test.
Yeah, which we didn't even comment on, which is a compliment, right? That's a compliment. If you're not like, oh wow, I mean, like we always say, like the running joke is if someone walks up to you and say, oh, great nose job, right? It's like, you must have a
Right.
great plastic surgeon. That's an insult, right? If we don't see it, then that's the whole point, is not to see tracks of the artist when they're using a sophisticated technique like this. So,
Right, right. And when you bring up tracks, and I don't know if it's actually what it is, but in the lower right hand corner there is there is a repeated pattern that has definitely been some Photoshop work.
yeah, yep.
Yeah,
Caught you, Mark. Caught you.
I tried. I was gonna let that one go because it's such a beautiful image and is a lot of work. And
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Very good. Very good. Cool. All
Nicely
right.
done.
Yes, Marc Charette with your 8x2 at 70 millimeter image that we couldn't figure out. Paolo. Raphael Swift comes in and says, an old one, the eel pond in autumn from 2019, a stitch of 36 images from the Nikon D7000.
Nice.
Look at that. Wow.
Nice. That is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
That is so cool. I'm scrolling back and forth as I look at this. Overall, the images is fantastic. I'm really kind of struggling with the log in the middle.
Yeah.
I see the purpose. I see the intent of the divide. I like that, but it's out of focus, and I'm really struggling with the fact that log. I wish the log was not out of focus. I think that's my whole hang up.
Yeah. My just real quick, my I agree with that. So that log is the first thing that kind of throws me off because it is slightly soft. It's right in the middle, which we don't, depending on the compositional goals of the shot, we don't tend to do that. And it's not as well lit as the background, so it's a little bit in shadow, so almost going to a silhouette. So I would want that out of there because it's blocking me from this beautiful tree line of images lining this lake. So that's the first thing. The second thing for me is these ultra wide panoramas like this. I think it depends on the installation. Like if this isn't a giant room and this is the entire wall, and as you walk from one side to the other, it takes you 3 minutes to walk by this print, then I think this crop makes sense because it's huge and it fills the space. But looking at it small like this, I always get the feel that I'm looking between blinds or like out of, between something that's obscuring my vision, and I can only see this little slit right there that I'm looking at. So I feel like on big shots like this, I don't, it's not always possible, of course. I almost want another row of image at the top, maybe a little bit at the bottom, but just to show me a little bit more of the grandeur of this image other than just this tiny slice of it when you get this wide. So just like maybe even a half a row on top of it, just to give it more sky and more breathing room up top. I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. I think that this is an image that you have to zoom in to sort of appreciate the resolution that's there. And then this isn't an image that you can really enjoy small, right? Like it's something that you need to see big in order to really appreciate it. So I love the image. I love the overall, everything that you said about it. I think that if you were Raphael, if you were ever to go back and do this shot again, one, think about that log. If you're going to include the log, and I'm not opposed to that, get it in focus. And then try to shoot from a slightly higher angle so that it's not breaking the line between the tree and the sky. That feels like it's interrupting, right? Like just a tiny bit. And I think that you could leave that in there. And it's kind of a very clever, design. So I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you had another row on top of this and then just Photoshop a little bird on top of that log right there. It's like, okay, I get it. That's why that's there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
something like that. But more intentional disruption than an out of focus stick. And I'm simplifying it, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things that autofocus stick does, because the top of the stick is right in line with the top of this hill line up here. That creates a source of, okay, what's going on? And my brain has to figure that out. Okay, that's what that is. And then it's nearly bisecting the image in half. So you're thinking, why is that bisecting? What's the importance of that split right there? So you get stuck in that eddy of trying to figure that out. Why is that in the middle? And then the payoff is, oh, it's not. It's just there, right? So yeah, either get rid of it or make use of it somehow.
Nice.
Marie Kondo this image. If that stick does not spark joy, then get rid of it. All right. Next up is Karen Sweeney. Hello, Karen. 8 portrait orientation frames stitched for an ultra-wide shot of Pollock House not long after dawn. Shot the other day. Look at
Oh
this.
wow, that is really neat.
Look at
Just
this.
looking at the compositional elements. I'm trying to see.
I know you're
Wow.
measuring right now. Yeah, Karen.
Yeah.
Karen, you know what, Troy? I don't even have to look at Troy's thumbnail in this software. Troy is measuring. He probably has a ruler on the screen or a triangle or something, trying to measure your lines.
That is not fair. It it looks like it's leaning a little bit.
It is. I'm checking now, and I don't see a lean at all. Wait, maybe a little bit. So I'm looking at the main building in the middle, and the left side. I just drew out a crop with Shift Command 4 to use that as my line. So I'm looking at the left side, which is it? It is barely. It's barely. I mean, I don't know.
I think what we're seeing is a bit of an illusion where I'm assuming that the building to the left is slightly further away than the edge of the building to the right is slightly closer. So it gives an odd sense to it. I mean, when you're looking at something that's big and three-dimensional in a flat, sort of viewing environment, it can be odd. That doesn't take away from the image for me at all. It was just one of those kind of things that right away I'm like, ooh, I wonder. I
Yeah.
do enjoy this image a lot, and I appreciate the fact that there is more foreground than there is sky. So I feel like I'm standing at a distance looking into the space, and I think that's handled exceptionally well. So I really love that.
Yeah. I think with shots like this, and tell me if you agree, Troy, with shots like this that are they have a sense of symmetry and geometry to them, we automatically want to verify that geometry in our brains. We want to say, oh,
Right.
is it exactly split down the middle? Is it leaning? Is it, where are the differences in here? Where are the things that make this not symmetrical? So your brain just subconsciously goes there, looking for things. And this one is clearly symmetrical, and clearly the artist wanted symmetry here, so we go down that path. But yeah, I like it. I like this.
Yeah, and I think it depends on your audience. I mean, your this image is in front of photographers. So, when I walk through an art gallery, I'm looking at images not as somebody who just appreciates art, but as somebody who appreciates art and creates his own art and, understands the process. So I dive into the images even more like, ooh, where's the light coming from? Why is that out of focus? Or why is that in the frame? Like, what would be the purpose for that? So that's what we're doing with this one.
Yeah. Yeah, which in some ways could be unfair, right? Because the vast
Right.
majority of humans looking at this are not going to look at it as critically as someone who judges image competitions who would look at it, right? So most people would look at this, I would argue, like the vast majority of the population of the planet would look at this image and say, "Wow, this is amazing. This is cool," right? Without getting into is that building 1 pixel tilted to the right, right?
Right.
So, but we strive for
And I will say,
perfection.
yeah, and I will say that the stitching is fantastic. I don't see any blending issues. The tonality across the entire image is fantastic, which is very difficult to do. The building looks evenly lit. I mean, the sharpness is there. But my only image critique would be a little bit more contrast, meaning just push the shadows down, the blacks down a little bit more to create, some more depth in the image. There would be some darker areas, I think, maybe in the trees and things, but that's completely personal preference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 for sure. But yeah, both ways. I like this image a lot. I like the use of the technique of panorama. I like the symmetry. I like the splash of red in here in an otherwise sort of fully earth toned image aside from the sky. That little splash of red just kind of pops out a little bit. Yeah, I dig it. I dig it.
Yep. Very nice. Very, very nice.
Good job, Karen Sweeney. All right, coming up next is James Glennie. He said, went back and tried to restitch a 74 image pano of the Sky Dome. I refuse to call it by its new inferior name. But I gave up after capture one. Spent 45 minutes trying to render the first preview, so I settled on redoing this one, as I was never a big fan of the job Lightroom did with it the last time. I like this version much better. 14 image stitch of, see, there they go again. You see that? You see that right there? Trying to make me read that? Cathedral Notre Dame in de Paris before it got too hot to handle. Full size 100 megapixel version is available at this link if you guys want to check that out inside the community. But here's the one that he squeezed down to fit into the critique.
Wow, that's really neat. I want to look at that. I want to look at that big version because I want to see, if I can zoom in on people's faces and, probably all that detail, which is super cool about, like these sort of like gigapixel type images where you're stacking so much data in there, which I think is really, really wonderful and a bit of a surprise, that you're able to like jump into that. Really well done, James. I love the stitching. The stitching is done exceptionally well.
Yeah, this is
just
beautiful.
Kind of looking around.
Yeah, I want to zoom in on it too. Yeah, I had a chance to visit this cathedral when I was in Paris doing a workshop with Valerie Jardin. So this is, yeah. Whenever I see things like this, Troy, like whenever I see these, it just makes me understand how much culture in history we do not have here in the United States, because there's nothing this old or this beautiful, this ornate. Maybe some things are close, but there's nothing with this much history, at least in it, that we can go look at and visit and touch. It's amazing.
No. This is really done. So this is amazingly well done, James. This is really beautiful. And, the color, the rendition, the stitching. I love the fact that you've got that nice deep blue sky behind the building that's really giving it sort of an offset, creating some nice, wonderful depth. I do notice in the lower right-hand and left-hand corners, it looks like there's pieces of the image that are missing. And you've got some of those horizontal marks in there. Remember, it was in another image and you said you knew what it was, but I forgot what you said they were.
Horizontal marks. Where? I don't see them.
It's like 3:00 on the right-hand side. There's one in the sky, just above the main building, right above the cloud. Oh, go down a little bit.
Down
right there. Yeah, just to the right of your pointer. There's one there.
Okay.
Yeah. There's one off the spire in the dead center. There's 2 or 3 in there.
And these huge images, right? Those details are going to reveal themselves. How would you retouch this? How would you go through the image? Would you just start in the upper left and just page down and just retouch one quadrant at a time? Or what's the best way to retouch an image of this size?
So any image that you're going to print, it really doesn't matter what the size is, right? Like any image that you're going to print big that starts to get expensive is I zoom in to, like 100% or 200%. I fill my screen and I just literally scroll through the image in columns and look at every single bit of detail that I can see. And usually what my standard is like, let's say I'm going to print an image at 60 inches. Right. So then what I'll do is I'll take an image and I'll resize it to 60 inches at 100 DPI, which is roughly 1:1. So if I was to print that image, a 60-inch print, what I see at 100% is roughly what I'm going to see on the computer. And if I can't see anything on the computer, I probably won't see it in the print. So, scrolling through and looking at that can be really helpful.
If you're doing like your first pass in Lightroom, I believe this works in Photoshop too, but if you start in like Troy said, zoom in to 100%, start in the upper left-hand corner and use your page up, page down keys, it will increment exactly down. So if you retouch the top left corner of it and you're done, you hit page down, it will slide down to the next block for you to retouch. And when you get to the bottom, you hit page down again, it will shift over one column and go back to the top so that you can just keep retouching as you work your way through this gigantic image.
And I know
Very
that
nice.
Lightroom used to have, and I'm assuming they probably still do, but they used to have a retouching mode, like a dust spot mode that
Hmm.
would force the image to be incredibly contrasty. And
Yeah.
I do that. I do that too on anything that I'm going to print big, like anything that's going to be expensive that I want to make sure is perfect. Um, it's amazing the details that it'll bring out. You can do the same thing in Photoshop
Yeah.
with like a
Yeah.
high contrast layer stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. Really cool. Good stuff. What a good topic you picked there, Troy Miller. Thank you.
I'm loving it.
Yeah. Jim Peters. Oh, and whose image was this? This was James. Oh, perfect. Thank you, James, for this image. Very nice.
And to be fair to everybody, I was going to submit an image of a recent moonrise over Hearst Castle that I shot, and I thought, oh, I'll just stitch that a couple days before we need that. It wasn't working. It looked horrible.
Let me
I
guess.
couldn't get
Capture one? It was a capture one?
it was my fault. I shot it with too wide of a lens, and infrared does this weird thing where you get like these hot spots in the middle, even if it's just off like a quarter of a stop. So when you stitched it together, it was just horrible. There was no, it was awful. I was like, maybe I should just post it to show how bad it is. And I thought I didn't.
Oh, I meant to do that. This is art. Right. All right. And I think it's his last but not least. It's Mr. Jim Peters, the Albanian Alps from October. Look at that.
I really love this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's a stitch or not, I just love those three layers of color. I am not a fan of the green intruder on the lower left.
The photo bomber.
Yeah, we have to disinvite the green intruder and just crop them out.
Yeah, yeah. I 100% agree with that.
I really love this. And one thing that I would suggest, James, is that when you crop this, the distance that you have in the orange of the trees in the lower right-hand corner, right, from the top of the tree to the bottom of the frame, give that same distance to the top left-hand corner from the mountains to the top of the clouds, so that
from here to here,
it feels. Does that make sense? So it feels very, very symmetrical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like a
Yeah,
flag.
Yeah, yeah. I don't really have a lot else to add to this. I think this is really great.
Yeah,
We'll just
I
look
wonder.
at it. Let's
Yeah, let's just have a moment of zen on this image. I wonder, just technically, I wonder if content-aware fill would take that green intruder out of there with a couple clicks. Because it's a high-frequency area, the colors aren't all over the place, and you know, easy to hide your tracks when it's a busy area like that.
kind of. Sometimes Photoshop oftentimes does a really bad job with high frequency areas.
Yeah.
It creates a clumpy, messy frequency, right? It's not natural; it's unnatural, so it looks weird. It's definitely worth a try, though. I think you could figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. All right. So many good submissions to kind of talk through. Let's recap. I'll scroll through these so you guys can see them. There's that one. There's that one from Nora. Paolo. Monsieur Charette.
Who do we pick?
I know. That's on you. That's what I'm scrolling through. I'm scrolling through them so you can pick your favorite. They're all my favorites. They're like all my kittens.
I think for the overall image and stuff, I think Stampfli's is definitely one of my favorites. For a number of reasons. Not that they're all wonderful stitches and they're all stitched together really well. But I think what I really love about Craig's image is, you know, you've got this sort of mystery of this perfectly flat horizon in the distance, the vertical towers, and yet you've got the bridge distorted in the foreground. And that is so neat and really not something that you can do with a single frame in a wide angle lens, right? Because then
True.
everything distorts and you can't warp it back. And so this to me is something that is kind of really unique to a panoramic stitched image. This is really the only way that you're going to be able to do that. So I think that leans into the topic quite a bit. So, and it's
Yeah,
great, and it's a wonderful image.
I agree. As much as I don't want to blow Craig Stampfli's head up any more than it already is, yeah, this one. Yeah, for me, it was. I think this is the clear winner, considering the topic of the critique. But this one and Karen Sweeney's is also very well done, very well executed. So let me bring that one up as well.
They're all good, and kudos to everybody for rising to this challenge because one, it's a lot of work. It's not just a few tweaks on an image. Like you've got to spend hours, stacking and cleaning up the scene, and it can be tough. So kudos for everybody for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Cool. I like that one. That was good. I like those submissions were fantastic. Yeah. So what's our next critique topic, Troy Miller?
Well, I think after something this exhausting, that we need something a little bit easier to do. So
a palate cleanser.
Star Trails. We're gonna do. No, I'm kidding. Let's make it open. Let's make it an open category so everybody can just relax.
Okay, look at that. Yeah, a day off for the. Okay. So open, so anything you want. Macro, portrait, stitched, landscape, whatever. Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Any parameters on that? Does it have to be recently photographed, or can they just go harvest their Lightroom library or whatever catalog?
Harvest away. Like, maybe that would be an interesting, maybe it should be a harvested image. Maybe we should consider that, go back to something you have edited in a while, or go back to something, that is an older version and rework that with today's technology and maybe with a new modern look. But do whatever you want. It's open. Yeah.
All right. I like it. Open, free, relaxed, no pressure. Make something amazing. That's it. So no excuses, right? So no like, well, I really can't do. I don't understand stitching or stacking. This is straight photography.
Because there's going to be a lot of images.
Yeah. No, I'm ready for it. All right, bring it on. Congratulations, Craig Stampfli and Karen Sweeney, because I like yours as well. They're all great. I mean, I think part of this was the thing that I was looking for was not being able to tell for the most part. I went into this like thinking if I can tell that this was a stitched image and it was intentionally stitched or it was intentionally, you could sort of see the tracks, then that's a fail or just a lower mark.
Right.
But I'm revising that because you look at Craig's and he leaned into it. The fact that this is a panorama, this is stitched, and you could not get this, like you said, Troy, you could not get this image any other way than the way he did it, or at least it'd be really hard. So, yeah, very good stuff. Very good stuff. Congratulations, everybody. Good job.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yep. So next week do you believe we're into February already? February. We only got 11 months left in this year. February 6th at noon Pacific, we'll be doing our group photo critique. So come in there and hang out. That'll be a good opportunity to kind of get some feedback on this stuff that we just looked over today and some shots that you may be planning on submitting for the next critique. So that will be on the 6th of February at noon U.S. Pacific time. And then the following Monday will be the 13th, Monday the 13th, and that's when we'll do our open photo critique. So come as you are, bring your shot.
And a point of interest, on February 5th is a full moon. So I'm just saying, over the weekend, could be some good moon stuff.
If you have the proper gear, right? Not everybody's blessed with a 600 millimeter lens like you, Troy Miller.
I don't have a 600. I want one so bad.
Well, you have a 4. You have a 4, right? And you use a 2 times extender on there.
I don't have an extender. I want one,
Oh,
but I shoot everything with a 4, and then
okay.
I crop judiciously.
Yeah, you got the resolution on that Z9. You're good.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So I'm just saying, it's gonna be a full moon. You don't now keep in mind, guys. Like you know me, I talk about the moon a lot because I think the moon is super cool. But you don't have to go out and photograph the moon on a full moon. Wait for the moon to come up and go out and photograph the world, photograph nature. Go photograph like a city scene or outside and just lit by moonlight. It's different. It doesn't look the same. It's kind of cool when you can do what looks like a landscape image lit by the sun, right? And then there's these beautiful stars in the sky. It's just super cool. So there's
Yeah.
more that you can do.
Love it. Love it. Cool. Hey, and before we break here, Troy, you have for members, you have an event coming up that you're going to invite folks that are inside the community to, right? What is that event? Give us a kind of a preview.
I have an event.
Yeah, I thought you were
What
going to
event is?
post a live stream or something you mentioned that you're going to post in the community. Is that still secret? Put him on the spot. Look at
I have
that.
so many things happening right now. I'm not sure which one.
Okay.
Uh,
All right.
I,
Well,
I am putting together a business of photography course, so we're going to be doing that, but I don't know when that's going to be yet. And if you're in the local area, IAPPV is having their open house. Like if you just happen to be here next Wednesday,
there you
and
go.
I'm doing a business of photography in San Diego on the 14th and the 15th of February for Valentine's
There you
Day.
go. There you go. There
So
you go.
there you come to that.
Okay. All right. Well, good. All right, folks. Thank you all for attending. Thanks for all the likes and love. I saw those come through. If you haven't clicked the like button yet, please do that to help us get some attention on these videos that we're putting out. And other than that, we will see you guys, all of you, in a couple days on Friday at the Member Mixer. Otherwise, we'll see you virtually mingling in and around the community as you post the various things that you're doing. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.
Take care, everyone.